you for joining us on the rainy day. So we're coming at you through Facebook today. But we are here with you. We're going to sing some songs. Take just a couple minutes and breathe. Be present to yourself. Be present to God. Here we go. Come what may. You're the one whose word is true. You're the one who sees things through. And joy and hope and even fear. You are real and really near. And you see us in the place we stand today. Come what may, come what may, we are yours no matter what. Come what may, come what may, you have sealed us with your love. Come what may. You're the one whose faithfulness is perfection and nothing less. And we cherish you the most, 'cause you're the one who holds us close. We are safe within your arms to stay. Come what may, come what may, we are yours no matter what. Come what may, come what may, you have sealed us with your love. Come what may. Not death, not life, neither darkness nor the light could ever hold you back from us. Not today, not tomorrow, or the troubles that come. To silence or resounding love. Look high and look low. There's nowhere we can go. You won't be there. You'll be there. Come what may. Come what may. We are yours no matter what. Come what may. Come what may. You have sealed us with your love. Come what may. Amen. You are a beloved child of God. No matter what you're feeling or thinking, and the way that you're responding to God, none of that actually matters. Is conditional on the love that God has for you. If you're wondering if you are meant to be here or created on purpose or have some sort of plan in your life, yes, yes, yes to all those things. And God can restore and revive anything that you think is beyond repair or beyond hope. God is creating beautiful things all the time around us.
All this pain, I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change. Could a garden come up from this ground at all? You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. All around, hope is springing up from this old ground. Out of chaos, life is being found in you. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. Oh, you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You make beautiful things out of the dust.
Thank you, God.
You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. Oh, you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of
God, continue to do your work in us. We are available and open. Create something beautiful in us today. Amen.
The thunderous applause you hear is Silas. He is our audience of one today. I'm just going to put my things down and we'll jump right back in with today's message. Well, thank you so much for joining us today online for Roots and Branches, where we're all about growing deeper in faith and reaching out in love. I want to again direct your attention to the links that are in today's video description. One will take you to our website, rootsandbranchesmn.org, and that's where you can find out more about who we are. You can fill out the Contact Us link. And then also in the video description, there's a link to our upcoming book study, where we're going to be reading the book, What is the Bible? By Rob Bell. And that group's going to be led by Anna, our intrepid administrator here at church. And she has had a recent kind of awakening and passion about reading and learning what's in the Bible, and it's been aided by this book. And so she wanted to share that experience with everyone. So you can find out more. There are online and in-person options for that upcoming study, and I hope you're able to join us for that. Today we are jumping into yet another section. I think this is part 5 in our series called Origin Story, Genesis and the People of God. And we've been talking about the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, and how that can not only tell us about ancient events that may or may not have happened in the past, but how it can tell us about what it means for us to be God's children. Just like the origin story of a superhero tells you what their mission in the world is, our origin story in Genesis can tell us what our mission in the world is. So next week, I'm going to be talking about Sodom and Gomorrah on the first Sunday of Pride Month. So there's that. But it's a much abused passage that may have been taught as proof that the Bible is against same-sex relationships. But next week I'll show how that's not what it's about, and we'll also take a look at the message that it actually has for us today. But today I'm going to talk about Abraham, not Lincoln, the other Abraham, the one that started off as Abram in the book of Genesis. Now, the Abraham story has a lot of chapters to it. There's a lot going on. He's pretty much the main character of Genesis, as well as the starting place for the story of the Jewish people and Muslims, and of course Christianity. So there's so many colorful chapters in Abraham's story, like when he got his wife's servant pregnant, or the time that God made Abraham circumcise himself. But I'm not going to go that direction today. Today we're going to talk about the promise that God made to Abraham before God changed his name to Abraham, back when he was just plain old Abram, and what that has to do with our world today. So this is from Genesis chapter 12, starting in verse 1. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your land, your family, and your father's household, for the land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation and will bless you. I will make your name respected, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Those who curse you, I will curse. All the families of the earth will be blessed because of you." Now, on the surface, this seems like such a beautiful promise. Like, what a gift. How unexpected. Out of nowhere, God spoke to Abram with a promise of this magnificent blessing. God will make something great out of him, make a nation out of his descendants. And not only will Abram be blessed, but all the families of the earth will be blessed because of Abram. But there's actually a lot of complexity, not just because of these words, but what Abram and his descendants did as a result of these words. So today, I'm just going to give you, it's Zach's little technical difficulty. Not a problem. Welcome. So today I'm going to just share 3 observations about this promise that God made to Abram. Observation number 1, the price of God's blessing is stepping into the unknown. The extravagance of the blessing that God promises to Abram is not free. If Abram wants to be blessed, to father a great nation, all he needs to do is leave everything behind. And it's through Abram's journey into a land that was at that time known as Canaan that the story of Israel begins. In fact, Abram's grandson also gets a name change. He started as Jacob, and God gives him the name Israel. But it's true that this story and throughout the Bible, that in order to experience true blessings, you have to venture into the unknown. When the Hebrew people fled slavery in Egypt, they didn't know that the Red Sea would be parted before their eyes. They didn't know they'd spend 40 years in the wilderness either. David couldn't have defeated Goliath if he hadn't been willing to put himself out there and risk his life in the first place. Sure, there are little blessings throughout our lives that just come to us without much risk. And we can take a lot of those blessings for granted. Food, shelter, family. They can feel like things that we deserve. But it's when we take holy risks for the sake of our love of God and others that we not only receive blessing, but we also realize what God is up to within us. And when we walk through the seasons of sacrifice, we discover that no matter how things turn out, the blessing that happens within us is actually the most profound blessing of all. We've got a great example right here in our own church. Our very own Pastor Christy is setting off on an Abram-like adventure of her own, leaving her comfort zone and venturing into seminary and into a life of ministry because she can hear that's where God's voice is calling her, and she's willing to listen. And I'm confident that she is going to be blessed by that experience and that we will be blessed by her work with us. And honestly, we are all on an adventure of God's blessing too. It was just about 2 years ago with this little church, Roots and Branches, that we heard God calling us to an unknown land. We left our homeland in Ramsey and followed God's voice all the way to Anoka. And God even changed our name too, from Northern Light to Roots and Branches. Our main goal in this adventure was to free up more resources so that we could be a better blessing to our neighbors. And so far, it's actually working. But we aren't done, obviously. There are more holy risks that we can take as a community, more people that we can bless. And I believe that this community is going to continue to venture into unknown places because we know that's where blessing is waiting to be discovered. The price of God's blessing is stepping into the unknown. That's observation 1. Observation 2 from this story of Abram's blessing is this: we are blessed for the sake of others. Did you notice right at the heels of God announcing this blessing over Abram, God turns around and says, all the families of the earth will be blessed because of you. God shows God's hand here. It's pretty clear that the whole point of Abram's blessing isn't for its own sake. It's for the sake of the world. Now, lots of people have had lots of ideas about what this is supposed to look like, where the blessing gets handed off to the whole world. For some, since Jesus is a descendant of Abraham, they say that Christianity is the real answer to this promise, that through Jesus, anyone can become a child of God, a son of Abraham. And I think that's a real possibility, but it couldn't have been in the writer's mind when they wrote these words down. And it wouldn't have been what Abram imagined when he received this promise from God. Not to mention the fact that Christianity, our track record is not great at being a blessing. Christians are no less likely to start wars than their ancestors were. And many of our churches use more energy telling people how bad they are than offering hope and peace and blessing. If we're trying to, if we're trying real hard in our little corner of Christianity here at Roots and Branches, but I don't know if we can counterbalance the 2,000 years of toxicity that Christianity has often put into the world. Another interpretation of this blessing is that its fulfillment comes when Abraham's descendants, the Jewish people, once again have possession of their promised land, Israel. And then there are lots of Christians who pile onto that bandwagon because they read somewhere that end times prophecies come true when Israel is a nation. I'm not getting into that today, but this is actually a really fraught conversation that I can't possibly do justice to this morning. But I'll open a few cans of worms that I'd love to talk with you more about sometime. Feel free to message me here on Facebook and we can have a conversation about all this. So, for instance, the modern nation of Israel started in 1948, so it isn't the same country of Israel that we read about in our Bible. The promises to the people in the Bible probably don't transfer directly to the government of Israel just because the country has the same name as the country we read about in our Bible. Also, if this was the best reading of these words and their meaning, then the thing that Israel would be doing right now while they're in possession of this land is blessing the whole world with their very existence. But as we've seen in the news recently, the Palestinian people, their own neighbors, are constantly in a struggle with the Israelis. As the more powerful group, Israel could be working to help the Palestinian people, but instead, Palestinians live like second-class citizens and are under threat of having their homes seized by Jewish people who appeal to this promise to Abram in Genesis that makes, this house here in this spot of land somehow already theirs because God says so. And finally, all this can result in anti-Semitism, which, prejudice against Jewish people, which is also wrong. So, complicated conversation. And I say all of this not to dive into political debates with anyone, but to illustrate that blessings are always for the sake of others. And when we don't share the love, the blessing can start rotting on the vine. None of us are doing enough, let's be honest, to turn the blessings that we've received into a blessing that flows freely to our neighbors. There's always room to grow in areas of generosity and hospitality and justice. And we give and we welcome and we work for justice not just to make the world a better place. We do it because we can see that there's so much to be thankful for. We feel blessed and we want others to feel blessed. We have not been blessed for blessing's sake. We are blessed for the sake of others. So, to briefly review. Observation one, we are blessed for the sake of, that the price of God's blessing is the venturing into the unknown. Observation two, we are blessed for the sake of others. And observation three is this, we are all chosen people. A lot has been made of the fact that the Israelites are God's chosen people, and it all goes back to this promise. God chose Abraham to be the one to carry the promise into the future. But what does that actually look like in real life? The assumption people tend to make is that being God's chosen people makes you special and grants you special privileges, like exclusive rights to a chunk of land on the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea, like I've already talked about. But if blessings really are given by God for the sake of sharing with others, then it's a pretty shallow view of Israel's blessing to just say you get privileges and not obligations as well. What if the blessing that all the families of the earth were supposed to receive was actually the same blessing that Israel received? What if God chose Abraham's descendants to be the bearers of God's blessing to all the earth? And what if, as followers of Jesus, we don't just inherit Abraham's blessing, what if we also inherit Abraham's obligation to bring blessing to every family on earth? And if the blessing of Abram expands and includes followers of Jesus, and if that blessing expands and includes all people, can you see what's actually happening? The super special status of chosen people gets expanded with every new iteration so that it isn't reserved for just a select few, but instead, everyone is chosen. Now, this might lead you to think, if everyone's chosen, doesn't that make it less special? Like if everyone's special, doesn't that mean that in effect no one's special? But that's the awesome thing about being chosen by the God of the universe. There's enough goodness in the blessing that we receive from God to mark every family on earth as special without it getting boring or ordinary. In fact, the problem isn't whether or not we're chosen. The problem is realizing we're chosen, accepting the fact that we're chosen, and living life. Living our lives like we're chosen. The truth of the story of Abraham isn't so much about a certain people a long time ago that were chosen by God. The beauty of this story is that God chooses people. God chooses people. God chooses people who are willing to listen, to follow God's lead, and to pass on the blessing. Something I've always wondered about this story of Abraham is how many other people did God call before someone was willing to go? How many times did God say, I will bless you if you're willing to venture to an unknown land, to other people before Abram, but they were unwilling to go? We don't have scriptures written about those people. We don't have songs about them, and there aren't nations named after them. And then in my wondering, I catch myself and ask, what if God is calling to me right now? What if I'm like those generations of people who missed their chance at greatness because they weren't paying attention? And I think the lesson of Abraham is that all of us are being called. We're all being called at every moment. We're all surrounded by blessings waiting to be shared. We're all chosen if we stop and listen to God's voice. The price of God's blessing is stepping into the unknown. We are blessed for the sake of others. We are chosen people. The question is, will you have the courage to go to the place God will show you so that you can be part of the story that ends with the blessing of the whole earth? It's my challenge to you today. I'd like to invite you, wherever you happen to be, to join me in prayer. God, we are surrounded by immeasurable blessings if we just take a moment to pay attention. Your love that fills the whole earth can also fill us in any moment. And so we ask that you give us eyes to see and ears to hear. Open us to be attentive to what you are up to in this world. And may the blessing that you offer to us so freely flow through our lives and into all the earth. Amen.
Sing one more song together before we head out in your day, whatever you got going on. A song called Mercy. Has a lot of words, but it's very beautiful.
May every word be spoken and every truth be told. May every promise be unbroken and every gift turned into gold. Let there be mercy, mercy, mercy. Let there be mercy, mercy, mercy. May every curse be broken and every hope revealed. May every blessing be unbroken and every broken heart be healed. Let there be mercy, mercy, mercy. Let there be mercy, mercy, mercy. Let the water flow, let the light shine, let the blood go through me like a river winds, through the valley, through the meadow, through my spirit and my soul, just like a river goes over the mountain, under the moonlight. Let the blood go through me till I truly see the light. And let there be mercy, Lord. Oh, let there be mercy, Lord. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Forgive us all the things we've done. Leave the writing on the wall, but don't let it fall, and don't let it fall. Let there be mercy, mercy, mercy. Let there be mercy, mercy, mercy. Let there be mercy for my brother and sister, my mother, my family. Let there be mercy for my friends and lovers, my foes and enemies. Let there be mercy for my words and wars, deeds and a river goes over the mountain under the moonlight. Let the blood go through me till I truly see the light. Let there be mercy, Lord. Oh, let there be mercy, Lord. Jesus, build a ship. Let us sing song. Let the Spirit on the face of the water be the wind and the sail that carries us home.
Thank you so much for joining us today at Roots and Branches. May you grow deeper in faith and reach out in love this week. May the blessing of God become so obvious that you can't help but act justly and love mercy and walk humbly with God. Amen.
Amen.